Hey guys, so welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a true Ancient Dragon deck profile, and as you can see, I've laid out the whole deck list out in Tabletop Simulator, all the copies, all the cards I'm going to be using, and I'll be going over each of these cards to explain their skills and their purpose in the deck, as well as the face down cards. Those are going to be like any extra text that you could go into, so I'm also going to be doing a tech discussion since we do have some extra slots in this deck. The Gaia deck profile will come later since I'm still trying to figure out a deck list for that. That's good. But for now, we're going to be looking at True Ancient Dragons. First off, we're just going to be looking at our trigger lineup. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You want to hit fronts as consistently as possible because all your True Ancient Dragons get a crit once per turn when you check a front. So you want to be getting that crit pressure and that power pressure constantly. So that's why we're running 12 front. And that's also how many fronts, the clan has right now. And then our 4 heals. We're not running the draw PG or the Sentinel crit because fronts are a lot more important. Why would you run those when you can just get crits to your front board? We have our starter, and that's also why we're running Savage Priestess here. Savage Priestess skill is a grade 1 perfect card, and when placed on Vanguard, you draw a card and discard a card. So this is also possible filter. This is a PG in hand. You don't need to like check a trigger or draw a trigger to get to like use a PG skill. So for this deck, this card does what it's supposed to. It blocks huge attacks that might come your way. I don't see like multi-attacking against this deck as a huge problem, so this deck also does draw quite a bit, depending how you manage your resources. Next, we have True Ancient Dragon Albertail. So what Albertail does is Vanguard Rearguard during your turn. If you have Vanguard Ancient Dragon's card name, then it gets +5. So this is either a 13k attacker or a 13k booster. And this is honestly the MVP of the deck. This card carries the deck. Okay, not hard carry, but it kind of carries the deck just because it's a 13k booster permanently. Unless you're on grade 2 or grade 1 and you rode the non-True Ancient Dragon cards. But this card is just a permanent 13k beat stick and booster, and it just carries the deck through power, since your attacks will constantly be hitting for like 15k guards or something like that, just because of this one card. Next, we have True Ancient Dragon Pterafeed. True Ancient Dragon Pterafeed skill is that when it attacks, or when its attack or the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, you'll get top 7 and you can call one Ancient Dragon from among them to rearguard as rest, and then you shuffle your deck. So this is just really good for board advantage. If you're missing pieces, you can just play this, hope that it hits, and then fetch something. This also does go off for a Barreltops, which is one of the great theories I'm going to get to. But this card is just really good for building board, and it sets up for your next turn really well. So if you're missing a piece, or if you just want, let's say, an Albertail in the back row and you don't have all 3 in the back row, then this can definitely fetch you those pieces that you need. Next, we're going to actually be starting with Dilophopyro here. Dilophopyro was talked about in the Art of Gaia video. If you haven't seen that, maybe go check it out if you're interested in Gaia. But what this basically does is that when it's placed from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast 1, you draw a card, and you can call a card to rear. We ignore the second part of the skill because that has to do with gauges, and we do ignore the second skill. The only reason why this card is in here is because you basically counterblast when you draw a card, then you call anything from your hand. So if you're on grade 2, you call down a grade 3. So if you have 2 counterblasts, you can actually just call this card, counterblast 1 draw, you call Barreltops, then use Barreltops skill, counterblast 1 draw, and it's free cards all around. It's also free board advantage. You don't go negative in any way, you just either go even or plus with this, and it's just a really good card. But the only reason why it's at 2 is because this deck uses quite a bit of counterblast depending on how you manage it, and having 4 of Dilophopyro isn't as consistent. Next, we have our favorite triple rare of all time, Megarex. Megarex is basically your retire card, so when it attacks a Vanguard on Vanguard or Rearguard, you retire another Rearguard and you draw a card, so this filters out. And then if it's on Rearguard, you can choose to counterblast 1, gauge it, and then gets +5 for each gauge. Normally, this would only be used as a 14k attacker if you want the power. It usually does not survive past its first turn being called down, since you're either going to call over it with another True Ancient Dragon, or it's going to get attacked. Just because this card is so strong, it is so free on that draw skill that other people feel the need to either attack it or retire it. So we run Megarex at 3 because we do have open slots. Dilophopyro is also a really good consistency card, as well as Megarex, so I split the ratios between these two. Megarex is just a lot more free than Dilophopyro, so Megarex goes to 3. Next, we have True Ancient Dragon Heftystyraco. So what this card is the best grade 2 in this deck. So on rearguard, if it is on an Excel unit, it just says if it's on additional rearguard, but that's basically an Excel unit. If it's on not Excel unit, Excel circle. If it's on Excel circle, it cannot be retired by your opponent's card effects and gains +5 permanently. This is continuous. So if your opponent plays in a Blaster Dark and they're trying to kill your Heftystyraco, well, if it's on Excel circle, they can't kill it. You can still choose it. Blaster Dark lets your opponent choose, but like you can just choose Heftystyraco and it doesn't get killed. This also bypassed Blade Master's retire skill. When they discard 2 and nuke the board, they have Doha and Garen on board. This gets by a lot of things. So this is just a constant 19k or 24k beat stick depending on which Excel circle you chose. And this is just really powerful. The only way to get rid of it is to attack into it. And attacking to a card like this just wastes their attack and removes pressure from their turns. So this is just a really good card to have, and you always want it on board whenever you Excel circle, unless you're running out of space. Next, we have True Ancient Dragon Aloneros. So Aloneros is your generic Ancient Dragon superior caller, right? This Dilophopyro is like the weakened version of this, basically. So what you do, no, I mean, Dilophopyro is a little better, and kind of, it goes back and forth, but this has a True Ancient Dragon name. Basically, when it's placed from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast 1, you look at top 3 cards of your deck, and you call 1 Ancient Dragon from among them to Rearguard. And then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order, so you don't shuffle at all, you just bottom deck them. You do have to call an Ancient Dragon. So if your top 3 has no Ancient Dragons, you can't call any, and you lose a counterblast. I guess in that sense, Dilophopyro is a little more consistent just because it makes you call something from hand. Versus Aloneros, which needs to chance it by looking at top 3. And with the amount, I mean, we have max True Ancient Dragon cards in this deck. Like, we maxed out everything. I mean, if you whiff it, then that's unfortunate, but this card is there to build board if you ever need it. I don't really find myself using its first skill all too often unless I'm on grade 2 or I'm missing beat sticks on board. So that's the only time really when I use Aloneros. I don't use it too much, but it's still a good card to have, and I mean, True Ancient Dragon with the front trigger crit +1 skill. So it's really good. Next, this is like the secret MVP of the deck. This is True Ancient Dragon Barreltops. So what Barreltops does is when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, if a Vanguard Ancient Dragon in its card name, you can choose to counterblast 1 and you draw a card and it gets +5 till end of turn. The reason why I say this is like a secret MVP is because this is your draw engine. If you keep calling Barreltops, you keep getting free cards. If you call this off a Dilophopyro, you have 2 counterblasts, you basically go even, right? Ride Dilophopyro, counterblast, draw, play Barreltops, counterblast, draw. So basically you play 2 cards and they both refunded themselves. So this is super strong. And as with all the True Ancient Dragons, has the front trigger crit +1. And then this is our main ride target, Bladeromeus. True Ancient Dragon Bladeromeus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but act on Vanguard once per turn. You choose to retire one of your rear guards, you retire one of your opponent's rear guards, and then you search your deck for up to 1 Ancient Dragon, and you call it to rear and it gets +5. So basically what this is, it's a searcher for your deck. So like if you're missing anything and you really need something, then this is the ideal card to get. So this can fetch any True Ancient Dragon. If you need a booster, it fetches Albertail. If you need draw power, it fetches Barreltops. If you need board advantage, I mean, no, Aloneros only works from hand, so not really. If you need that beat stick, you can fetch Heftystyraco. If you want if you want on hit pressure, you can fetch Pterafeed, and it just fetches everything. I mean, if you want to thin your deck out of grade 3s, it can fetch itself also. But the main thing here is that it also retires one of your opponent's rear guards, which is very crucial for this deck, since this deck can get comboed very easily. This deck does not have a lot of defense power, so sniping your opponent's useful units is very strong here. And that +5, if you have Excel 2 and you call down a Heftystyraco onto your Excel circle, it goes to 24, which is a magic number. I mean, if you have Excel 1, it goes to 29, but 24 is that sweet spot, since we usually go Excel 2, and that's just really good. Or you call them Barreltops, and Barreltops would be an automatic 22k beat stick if you use its Cannon Blast skill. And that's basically it for the whole deck. I went through everything, yeah, and so in this deck, right, if you're going 12 stands, you want the 4 Savage Priestess in the middle here, because you still need PGs for the deck. This is very crucial. This is what you want. So technically, if you're like maxing out all the Ancient Dragon stuff, you have 9 slots open, so these 4 slots the Savage Priestess is filling, and then these 5 grade 2 slots right here with Megarex and Dilophopyro. You technically have 9 slots, but if you're playing the 12 front build, you technically have 5 slots in your grade 2. Since you are filling your grade 1 slots with Savage Priestess. And so now I want to go over some of the techs that you can put in place of Megarex and Dilophopyro. I mean, you can also replace Savage Priestess if you want. So first we have the 2 superior colors, Blue Sprint and Regiodon. So basically what they do, they both have the same skill. When they attack Vanguard or Rearguard, you can gauge one of your Rearguards, so they can also choose themselves they're on Rearguard, or you want to gauge something else. And then when it's retired from Rearguard by a card ability, you can call up to one of this unit's equip gauges to rear, and then you can choose to gauge that card if you want. But this is also a hard once per turn, so if you have multiple of the same card, you can't use their skills multiple times, since it does say this ability may only be used by a card with the same card name once a turn. They both have the same skill. One's a grade 1, one's a grade 2. Really the main thing with these two is that you could remove Dilophopyro here if you find it too Cannon Blast heavy and put in Regiodon at 2. Because then that means that you can possibly extend your attacks, because you do have Megarex here. If you don't want to extend your attacks and just like have your board back, you can just use Bladeromeus, kill this with a gauge, and then you get the card back, and you get whatever Ancient Dragon you want from your deck. So this is just a tech card if you want either additional attacks or just cards to stick onto the board. This does have to be retired from your card effects. So if your opponent retires it, it's not going to go off, which is a little unfortunate, but that would kind of make this card busted for a rare. Another card that you could tech in is Sweeper Crocanto. It is our signature card. You know, when attacking rear once per turn, you can choose to gauge it. It has to attack a Vanguard. And then it gets permanently it gets +5 for each equip gauge, and if it has 3 or more, it cannot be chosen by opponent's card ability. So basically resist. I don't know why they didn't just plain out put resist on this card, but whatever. This is another card that you could choose to replace Dilophopyro. I think Megarex in this deck is just too strong. Regiodon and Sweeper just be replacing Dilophopyro here. Sweeper is just there if you want a really big beat stick to grow over the turns, and it will make your opponent run into it. Like, this is a card that cannot be left on the board, and since you don't have a way to turbo gauge it, then your opponent is bound to attack into this thing or like try to kill it. But yeah, those are really the only techs I can think of that would work in this deck. Some other things might be a little wonky since this deck doesn't have anything to do with gauge, so you need just good standalone units that deal with gauge in this deck if you want to implement some gauge mechanics or shenanigans. So yeah, Megarex I think is just too good. You can put Megarex up to 4 and just have one open slot for like whatever card you want. Blue Sprint's only there like in case if you don't like the PGs, you can put Blue Sprint. You can also put in Sonic Noah into here, but then again it is a gauger, or you can put in Laser Rex just so you get the free card back and you can filter. But since I'm running 12 front, this is my build, and this is just really unga bunga. The way you play this is that you just rush them super hard, hope you get fronts and all that. You filter your deck out with Bladeromeus and Barreltops, along with Aloneros, if you want to try to filter even more. Though your Cannon Blast is kind of scarce, you don't have that much Cannon Blast, so you kind of have to hope that you heal And that's about it. This is a deck profile. These are just proxies right here. Or not, sorry, not proxies, text. Everything else is stationary for me. This is my final build for Ancient Dragons. And yeah, if you like the video, like, comment something you want to see on the channel, subscribe for more Tachikaze content, because that's all we do here. I will be trying to put out more guides and all that. I am going to be doing a Gaia deck profile within the next month, since we do get the set in English at the end of this month, and I'm trying to play test with it in person with a few friends before I make a finalized deck list. So you guys will be seeing that in about a month's time, like maybe a week or so after the release of the set. And yeah, that is it for me. So I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.